always laugh and say, I can turn my phone off every night when I go to bed. And they go, why? I go, nobody gets fat overnight. The most two powerful things that I've seen for recovery: don't eat like a child and don't sleep like a teenager. I don't know if it's ever anything more than semantics. I don't think that a bunch of grown professionals that have been doing it as long as that we've been doing it, and this is with any staff that I've ever worked with, all the way back when, I got into professional baseball in 2007. I worked in the military, and now, the professional sport that I work in and with the team, the team that I work with now, and even the athletes that I have dealt with outside of here that aren't in my sport, generally speaking, most people see the same things. They want to put their own stamp on it. And they have a different lens, they have a different background. And it just comes back to having really sound principles. And that if you believe, let's just say that you believe every athlete should be able to be pain-free. That'd be like a principle. Some people think well, they're just going to have to play through a little bit of pain. No, we think a principle is you should be pain-free. Pain's not a normal thing. How we get that person out of pain is probably the thing that we argue about the most, not necessarily the fact that they're in pain or he's not moving well. There's a little bit of well, I don't think he's moving well because of his ankle, or I don't think he's moving well because he doesn't have core stability. I don't think he's moving well because he doesn't breathe right. Let's just do all of it. Let's just see who cares how we get that person better or make them move better. Let's just try all of it, because odds are all of it's going to be really healthy for them. I'd much rather have a tool belt with every tool on it. Yeah. And if I have to use 5 or 6 tools for one solution, great, versus having a small tool belt with a giant hammer or a sledgehammer. And so a sledgehammer is very useful and I can do a lot of stuff with it, but I can't do I can't screw in fine screws into the back of a remote. And so the sledgehammer will help me break the crap out of it if I need to, and sometimes we need that. I think a sledgehammer is a great option for, thick in the off season for a player when they need to get stronger. Let's hit them with a sledgehammer. At the end of a baseball season, I have the teeny tiny screwdriver in there trying to be precise with everything that we're doing. And I think that's a little bit of how this works when you work with a performance staff, where you have an ATC, you have a PT, you have a soft tissue specialist, you have a strength coach, you have a movement coach, you have a nutritionist. Knowing where you're at in the season, knowing where your athlete is. Are they 22 or are they 38? Do they play every day or do they play once a week? Are they really good at their sport or their craft, or are things not going well right now? All those things come into play, and he has this problem. And he's not hurt. Let's say he's still playing, but he has this problem. How do we get into him, motivate him, and educate him correctly without losing him or her? There becomes this risk-reward that I think that the more work that we put in November, December, January, February, and even March to some degree, the better off we're going to be in August, September, October, November when it matters. And so if we build that up and we take care of that, we see less of those problems late in the season. So we don't have to worry about the sledgehammer. We don't have a fitness problem doesn't get fixed overnight. Inflammation can get fixed overnight with pills and with soft tissue treatments and with rest and recovery and things like that. But we don't. I always joke about this with athletic trainers because they live their life through a phone. Because somebody get hit by a pitch tonight, somebody can get a concussion in a football game, somebody can roll an ankle in basketball. They're on call and stuff matters right now. And I always laugh and say, I can turn my phone off every night when I go to bed. And they go, why? I go, nobody gets fat overnight. Strength and conditioning, this stuff takes time, and nobody gets fit overnight. And so I have more of chronic anxiety in this field because I'm constantly worried right now when I don't get to see the athletes. What am I going to be doing with them? Or what would I be doing with them? And what should I be telling them to do from afar to put them in the best position to compete when they come in February? Just starting to like look at different needs of hydration or electrolyte levels. Like I think for the longest time it was like, just give them some red juice that is in the that's in the canister over there, and that's going to make everybody's problems better. Like there is a part of that that's true, but like it's not always a sodium potassium problem. Like there's chloride problems, there's magnesium problems, there's things that we've looked at from NASA that we use for guys, just how they have had to handle like obviously extreme conditions of dehydration or whatever effects that they would have from being in outer space. And so we try to assess every one of those a little bit different. Like when somebody's cramping in game, like it's probably a sodium problem. Like so, like a lot of the stuff that I've gotten like from Ted Harper, who's with the Patriots, I worked with him in the military. Is like he talked about speed skaters carrying around mustard packets and like shooting those mustard packets in the middle of the game. So like we've even done a little bit of that. Like, some of it's neurological too, in the fact that like we cramp up because maybe we're tight on the other side, or maybe like we just had like electrical imbalance in our body. So like having something really spicy, like hot mustard. There's a couple of pitchers that would probably laugh if they knew I was telling the story, but like I've jammed like jalapenos down guys' throats and like squirted like spicy mustard down their throats in like really extreme conditions, and like, oh, I feel pretty good. Like, holy crap, that worked. Like you don't know what to expect. But there is a little bit of component, like spicy food makes your body kind of have to chill out a little bit because it's probably focusing on the spice. And so, we've had a little bit of luck with that, and we carry that with us now. But, there's so much going on inside the body. And to always think that like one little factor, sodium's the problem. Like sodium's deficient. Why? There's like a whole chain reaction under that. Why? Potassium is the problem. It's not because we don't eat enough bananas. It's not enough because we don't. Whatever foods have the most potassium in it, spinach or kale or whatever. Like it's not because of that. Like there's something that's causing you to deplete those levels. Like yes, taking a vitamin for those will help rebuild those levels, but how do we naturally rebuild them and get that built back up the right way? That's what matters the most. And so, as we look at this end game, as we kind of go back to the original question, as we go back to like this end game, like making sure guys are ready, like it's just and as you get to know your athletes, like there's just a lot of little things that are going on constantly that we need to be careful of. And the greatest predictor of the future is the past. And so when somebody's like a habitual cramper, like it's probably something we need to keep paying attention to and reminding them. Are you hydrated with water? Have you taken your electrolytes? Have you put yourself in a good position? Have you got enough sleep? Have you not drank too much caffeine today? Do you dip? Do you smoke? Do you do any tobacco? Like those are all real things that we just constantly need to be having conversations with them about to make sure that we're on top of that. And then for the guys that don't, they have their own set of issues that we've got to stay on top of. We always assume that like professional athletes are like really healthy. That's also not true. Like they've masked, like I think of basketball players who are very thin, lean, like run up and down the court all the time. Like all of a sudden they come up with heart stuff or they come up with lung stuff or whatever it is. Like they're just masking their unhealthiness with great strength and conditioning. And so like they're very lean, they have very low body fat, and we just assume when we look at people like they're healthy. And that's not the case. Like really they're just rotting away under there because of their diet, because of their sleep habits, because of whatever genes that they've inherited from their family. And we've always just assumed like lean, check, good looking, check, plays professional sport, check, he's healthy, go ahead. And that's not always the case. It's like we have to be very, very careful with what we put in our athletes' bodies and ask a lot of questions, because this isn't necessarily the steroid age of professional sports, but at the same time, it's the wild, wild west of supplements. Like, there's just so much out there. Like, there's no possible way that you can be up on everything. Like, you have to take the time when you get a product put on your desk to take a look at it and see what it's actually doing or what it's claimed it's doing. It's not in my practice to, like, put anybody on that, but I'll send them to our dietitian and have them, they'll start with just a deep dive into, like, eating and sleeping. What's your eating schedule look like? What's your sleeping schedule like? Things are right, like then it's a lot easier to send them in and get a micronutrient test from the doctor or get a food sensitivity test from a doctor just to see what's going on. And so I would say, as much as we'd like it to be reactive, like it's more, or as much as we like it to be proactive, it's probably more impactful when it's reactive because there's a problem and they want to make a change. I wish that everybody was like, hey, I want to get better. Like, there are people like that. Like, I want to get better, give me everything. But there's not. And so, like, sometimes it takes somebody getting a little bit hurt. Sometimes it takes somebody feeling a little bit lethargic before we send them on to our people and get a deeper dive into it. That kind of segues into the next thing is, like, the recovery. And with the recovery, like, recovery is only as good as what we've trained ourselves to recover from. And so I look at it this way, that like 0 to 10. 0 is day on the couch and don't do anything and like sit around eating a bag of potato chips and drinking a 2 liter of soda. Like, that's the worst you possibly could be. And then a 10 is like intense doubleheader, 4-hour football game, 4-hour basketball game, triple OT, whatever. Like, I've got to be prepared for this thing because it might happen every once in a while. And so what I've seen over the course of time is like recovery has become so important that we forgot to stop training to get ourselves prepared for the 10. We just say, screw it, we'll just recover every day. And then we'll be able to just recover from the 10. But once you get over a 5 or a 6 of intensity, your body doesn't recover the same. It's in shock. So like an alarm phase in training is really good. Like a 2-week alarm phase is really good. To never go through the alarm phase in training and only go through it in playing like a sport is really scary. Because, oh yeah, you got to play again tomorrow. Like, there's no return from that. And so like building up our work capacity, building up our strength, building up our power, building up all those things. Now, if all I have to cover is between a 7 and a 10 from recovery, it makes it a lot easier to dive into like infrared saunas, blood pump, like Normatec pumping, BFR, cryo chambers, massage, self-massage, foam rolls, things like that. We do a ton of mobility drills. Like, believe it or not, like, God forbid we run a lot or we do a lot of cardio, because we don't live in that age anymore. We're like, cardio is supposed to be bad for like these power athletes, but like going out for a nice run, if you're a good runner, or bike ride or elliptical ride just to get a good sweat is really good. The most 2 powerful things that I've seen for recovery are the 2 most basic ones we take for granted. Don't eat like a child and don't sleep like a teenager. If you eat like an adult and if you sleep like an adult, or if you sleep like a baby, like the chances of you like hammering a lot of your recovery out are really good. If you try to put all your focus in a bunch of like eyewash around that, like, well, I'm just going to get in the sauna, and I'm just going to do this, and you're not going to sleep, you're not going to eat well, like, recovery is not going to go well very for you. So that's kind of my take on it, is train harder to prepare yourself for the stimulus. So when you get in season, you don't have to train as hard, and it's not as shocking to you when you play hard. Eat, again, like, I'm not telling people to like be crazy rigid and never have like a cheat meal or a snack or anything like that, or a cookie, but like, probably shouldn't be putting more of that stuff in your body than not. Go to bed at a decent time and try to sleep in as long as you can. And if you can't sleep, ask for help. Ask somebody, like, why can't I sleep? What supplement can we put you on? If that's not working, what doctor can we get you to see what the problem is? Because sleep is really, really important. And sleep is like a drug. If we don't get it, we go into like a mind-altering phase. I've seen it, and it's really scary. Like, it becomes a survival instinct for people when they don't sleep. And if you're having normal conversations in a survival instinct, there's no way that playing athletics at that time is really good for you.